Okay, so now that we're done with ifs and else ifs, now we're going to look at loops, right? What are loops? Loops are basically a way of doing things over and over again. Right? We're going to have a loop. So we have two types of loops. We have the for loop, then we have the while loop, right? So we're going to start off with the for. What the for loop does is, the basic structure of the for loop is, say for, right? And then over here we have our iterator, something called our iterator. Of our iterator, then we're going to say okay is equal to the initial value to our max value. Then we say do, and then we end our if. Now then we have our body there. So what this basically means is, when we start for our iterator, send out our initial value to our max value, this code, right, will run as many times as the difference between these, right? So say we have 4, then we have our iterator I there is equal to, let's say we start at 0 to 5, right? Do. Then we have our end 4. So it's supposed to be end 4 here, end 4. So what happens that this code will run 0, 1, 2. So these will be the values of I through each iteration. So it will run first of all. So I will start at 0, right? It runs this code, blah, blah, blah. Then I moves to 1. Again it runs 2, 3, 4, and then it moves up to 5, right? So through each of these iterations, it will run this code in here, blah, 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 increase y, increase it again, increase it again. So it will run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, right? For the purpose of our code, this will run 6 times, right? Now, when do we use this? Loops are used when you want to repeat something over and over and over and over again. This is when we use loops in programming. Now, the for loop automatically increases this iterator over here, right? Then now we have another kind of loop called the while loop. And then what the while loop is, the while loop is similar to our if. So remember, our if statement takes in a condition, and then if this condition is true, it will execute some code in here, right? Now what the while loop is, and if, so what the while loop is similar to this, only that the code in the body runs continuously until the condition becomes false. So we say, wow, even in English we can say, wow, this is happening, do this, right? So we can say, wow, then we can have our condition, do, then we can have our body there, and then we can end our wow, right? Then now this will run as long as this condition is true, right? Now the only difference between these two loops is that the if statement, we use it mostly for when iterating values, but this one can be used for anything. It can be whether we're reading a certain value, etc., etc. Now if you want to use it in a similar way in which we use our for loop here, what you would do is as follows. You'd say, first of all, you have to declare your iterator outside. So I would say I is equal to 0, and then I would say while I is less than 5 there, right? Do, as a matter of fact, it's supposed to be then here. Do, then I can have my entire body over here, right? We can do whatever I want to do within our body, but since this one does not automatically increase I for us, at the end we would have, somewhere within our code we would have to say I is equal to I plus 1, and then we can end our while there. And what we're basically saying here is, within our while loop we can make it work like our for loop, but within our while loop we need to make sure that we have a certain way of making this condition false. Otherwise this would run infinitely. If we don't add inside, if this was not there, right, if we were to say remove this would never be false, because So this would always be true because I is less than 5, 0 is less than 5. So that means that our code in here would run infinitely, right? So it's just one thing about if state. This is one thing about our while loops. Now, what can we use these loops for? Well, loops can be used to control. They can be used to process arrays. So we've said that loops can be used to do something over and over again, right? But then let's say we have an array. So let's say we have an array x is equal to, then we're going to give it values 0 2 5 3 7, right? So now, what is the length of this one? 0 1 2 3 4, right? So we can say n being the length of our array is equal to 5. This array is 5, right? N is equal to 5. This is the length of this array. So now we can have a simple loop. So here we can use a for loop or a while loop. And what I'm going to write code using a for loop, and then it's up to you now. Just as a bit of exercise for you guys, you're going to write this as a while loop, right? So I can say for I being equal to, then say 0 to n minus 1 do, then we can say something like print. Then we can then say x at I, right? X at I there. Then we can say n4. So what we're basically saying is, remember, this is moving from I will move from 0 up to n minus 1, n minus 1 being 4. And what our index is, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So what this will do is it will print the values at index 0 first, 1, 2, 3, then 4. Right? So it's what it's going to do. So if we run this code, this would just print 0, 1, 2, 3. This would print 0, 2, 5, 3, 7. Right? This is what would happen if we were to run this very simple code, if we were to convert this to another language, be it Java or Python, etc., etc. So just one way we can work with arrays using our loops.